is not much better than this time of year, knowing the weather is still mild out there, believe it or not. And projects are everywhere. The molding bench is full. We're just debating whether we can go flying today or not, but I guess we're not. We guys got too much work to do here. And it's nice to start off any day with just a little look at our concept drawing before we get into the meat and potatoes of another work day. Now, today, before we even get started, open up the mail. This is from Joe Adamusco and Dave Downey, of course. And this is a thing we had discussed previously about doing a reel at some future time, a reel right from the get-go, clean sheet of paper, 90 size Spitfire. Now, if you look at the drawing, and this is pretty much how Dave laid out the B-25. You can see the scale outlines, the stun outlines, flap outlines, among other things. Now, just to give you an idea of how exciting a project like this can be, the line drawings, and I'm reading right off of Joe's note, line drawings as shown in the left represent a hard scale Spitfire enlarged to 62-inch span, which is the span we'd kind of like to work around. What surprised us is the enlargement rendered a 688 square inch wing. The line drawings on the right are a Spitfire stunt ship that is nearly scale. You can see Dave elongated the lower and side view profile. Fuselage is 3.5 inches wide with a 3-inch spinner. Using the B-25 airfoil, 22%, Seafire type sheeting and spar construction, flaps are 3/8, and Dave is already working on this. Of course, I'm just not going to go on and on and on, but he's got a nice long note, along with the fact that the gear can almost be in a dead scale location here. Anyway, Joe and I, of course, are like fanatics for the Spitfire stuff, but I'm glad he gave me this drawing because I can post this up on my wall in the shop. Give me something to think about for a future project, maybe next year. You're never sure what comes along in this shop, but certainly you have to dream it before you can do it. And one thing is for sure, if you never have the dream, you never get to do it. Well, we didn't start this day off on a good note. They're digging up the whole street in front of my beautiful house. What's going on here? What a mess. Maybe they're gonna bury Rich Oliver in that hole, I don't know. Look at these guys making a mess. Oh. Boy, that brings back some pretty bad memories of when we had to pull a sewer line up over at the rental property. Oh man, not good memories. Not one leaf left on the tree here. They're all in piles. Anyway, Rich called me up. He said he could break away for about an hour. We're just going to run up to the field for an hour before I get back and start working in the shop. It's one of the treats of having one of these. Look at these leaves here. One of these, I guess, an Indian summer. We're in the month of December. We're coming right up on December. And it's 60 degrees outside. I mean, I've moved to Houston without ever having to move. Flying? It's supposed to be flying Santa Claus. What the hell is going on with this weather? Unbelievable year. Unbelievable year. Now what a treat. 10,000 seagulls on the field today, and I didn't bring any potato chips. I didn't bring anything to feed them. And one goose. Check this out. We didn't see any goslings this year. Look at this. Look at this, sleeping on the job stuff. Anyway, we're going to try to use up a good day. We have a couple little things to test. Rich may or may not get here. I'm not sure about Rich. Rich always says he's going to be here and he doesn't show up, or he shows up an hour late. Hey, you guys hungry? I got to remember to bring some stuff during the winter when we come here. These guys are good friends while I'm flying. I think Brian hit one last week. Hope he didn't. I hope he don't get revenge on me. Now it looks like Rich has been detained, so usually if he's not here in the first 15 minutes, it means he has some business stuff to attend to. He's still active in his business, of course. One of the things I wanted to try here, and I know one of the things we want to develop in the near future is what amounts to be a European type exhaust system, very quiet. So what I did, I put these little rubber stingers on the pipe where I'll be able to just get a rough idea. Now they're 300 ID, and I'll get an idea how this motor is going to run with two 300 holes. Although, you know, this is all redundant because we're going to make a custom exhaust system for the 90 ship. But just being able to test in this ship, it's a lot easier than doing it in a new plane. And I'm always a big believer in doing things, you know, like when we have weather, and it looks like we have a day that Santa Claus is coming to town here in shorts. The other thing is I've been spending some time with Doran's. This is the special Doran prop we have. This is a one-of-a-kind. It's thicker than a normal prop. It's got that extra layer of epon and cloth. It's about 20 thousandths thicker than a standard prop. So we've been spending time with that also. So this will give me a little, well, if Rich doesn't show up at all, I'm just going to fly off the Stooge. And one thing nice about flying off the Stooge is you just get to fly back-to-back flights, so maybe I should quit while I'm ahead here. Anyway, we're trying to set the camera up here. This is one of the few things that I think in the future I'm going to work on a little bit, and of course it's the cold start. Now it's not really cold today. That's part of the problem. And I was hoping I'd get, well, we've been using lighter fluid with pretty much success, but again, one of the things I wanted to work on. Little things. These exhaust systems, I'd like to have an exhaust system that if we ever want to take this plane to the team trials, it'd be super quiet. It's not important for anywhere unless you go overseas. They don't really check anything at the Nats. They don't check anything at Brodak's, which of course is convenient, but at the World Championships, assuming you wanted to, somebody with one of these wanted to go, then that becomes a problem. And of course the one flip start, you can always just warm up the engine in the pits if that was an issue. You know, it doesn't catch right away. Now I've got a bunch of those little rubber inserts that go in the exhaust, and what I've been trying to do is I put the ones that are 400 on there, 350. I've got them down to 300, and it's still not overly restricting the engine. So I'm wondering, what I might want to do is in the future is make up some little aluminum inserts on the lathe and drill some holes. But what this is telling me is, after a day of testing this, it's telling me that we can go down significantly on those tube diameters. Those tubes were over 400. I think they were 425, but I'm not sure. But it means when we make future mufflers, or we can leave them big and just make inserts, and we can change the inserts with a set screw. That's another thing that's going to come out of this session. But always finding where that point is, the point of where the performance diminishes. Now there's a really sad thing happening while I'm here, and I really didn't expect this to happen. So the wind is starting to pick up here, so that's not good. But I can still get a couple more flights. But this poor goose, now I've been keeping an eye on this goose, and you know how he's just sitting out here. Now I know geese mate, and they usually, you never see one alone, you always see pairs. This poor guy's alone. Now I wonder if his mate has passed away or something. He's been keeping me company for a whole session here, and the wind is blowing. I mean, it's brisk and everything, but it's certainly not a real winter day here. I mean, we're flying, getting back-to-back flights, and I'm just wondering, I don't know why I'm wondering about it either. I wonder if this goose he's just been sitting out here all alone for the last 2 hours. Kind of sad. When a year ago we got to see all those little goslings, that really added to my enjoyment. But anyway, this is so far I've learned something today, and I know for sure for sure, these props, the 4-bladed props, even when they're a little thicker, it just seems they get a little better, but even when they're stock out of the mold, they're real close to what we want. They run about 8,400, and boy, they just seem to be a great match for the 90. So I hope Doran's going to get off his can and send me the mold, or make me some more props, because Doran, you're a good man, but we need more props. What I'll try to do is, before we end this session, and it's getting too breezy to fly, I wanted to get at least one flight with this setup. These are the 300 exhaust holes. Doran's 4-blade with the thicker prop blades with the laminate on them. And the 248 Venturi, that setup has been just really pretty, about as good as we can get it. If I can get at least one flight, at least I'll leave the session. I can go home, look at it, listen to it, whatever. But it's getting breezy now. You can. I gotta go too. It's time to go. Time to go, chick. So Rich never showed up. Rich never showed up. Maybe he didn't know I was coming down. I thought he told me about it. Yeah. I'm trying to gear all my work around so I can get
What happened to the one goose? He's all by himself.
He's all by himself.
Yeah.
That one goose. Yeah.
I know.
And he's been keeping me company all day.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I gave him some bread, but he's not eating it.
Did you bring bread?
I'll see you later.
See you, John. So John shows up, Rich doesn't, and we pretty much got, and our goose is keeping us company all day. I can't believe this. But anyway, we're pretty comfortable with the idea we can get the exhaust neck down, and what we ought to do is even go further, get to the point where it's going to be too restrictive, and that'll be easy to figure out, and then back out. Or if I get some free time, just make up a bunch of inserts. That'll be a good thing to test if we get another flying day, and John just said tomorrow's supposed to be a flying day, so we'll see. Time to quit. As I always say, quit when you're ahead. Now, as I end the day, I always like to check, especially here. What I've been using is little safety wire things to hold these on, and they are 300 OD. Now, the next part of this test, again, I'm going to think about maybe making some, you can see how much they taper down, in fact. And it may be that in the end we'll only need one, but in the beginning I didn't want to be restricting the engine. I didn't want to be choking it down and overheating it and whatnot. And every time we do this, we learn more about this engine. And everything that we learn, everything from these sessions, even these sessions like today where, and you never know, it was good to see John, but Rich never showed up. Anything we put in a database is going to help us when we actually get the new 90 ship off the bench and into the air. This is just like putting money in the bank. Well, today Karen and I finally got the house, the end of the decorating done. We've kind of kept it to a minimum this year. She's real busy with her last year of work, and we're busy as heck with a million projects in the shop, but wanted to just give you a minute or so to look at our tree, our decorations. We wish you and your family a Merry Christmas, and let's hope that everybody in the world can find something to be happy about today. Some of the things I always remember, this is one of the ornaments I made years ago when Buster, my cat, was alive. Among other things, we just keep all these airplanes. My son's motorcycle, not sure what else. A lot of cool little stuff, things people have given us over the years, and we sure have a lot of things to be thankful for. Anyway, not to belabor the point here, but I really do enjoy when somebody sends me a picture of their Christmas tree or their train layouts or whatever they're working on to celebrate the holidays. Karen and I kind of get into it each year. It seems like each year, though, we slow down a little bit. We used to have these big giant villages with things on them, and we just don't have the energy anymore to put that up. But anyway, just what are cardinals on here? There's cardinals. There must be 100. And I never noticed this because we were decorating the tree. I never noticed how many cardinals there really are. There really are a lot of them. Anyway, we really do enjoy this. There's another one over there. We really hope you're going to have a very special Christmas too. And we're going to get back to the shop now. We have mail, we have projects, we have Stukas, we have everything down there. It's crazy. This is a crazy time of year. And believe it or not, they're predicting may even get a couple more flying days. Had a great call from Joe Adamusco. We had discussed when Richard Oliver was here this potential 90 Spitfire, and he got a hold of Dave Downey, and for the last couple of days they've been drawing sketches and plans, and I showed that little sketch. Well, we got full-size outlines coming, and Joe told me this weekend he's going to start cutting balsa wood and make a prototype wing, so that could be coming sooner than we think. Anyway, I'm excited about it. Between having that 90 and having Joe, I would suspect that plane might really be, and we're going to hopefully have dihedral and a very scale body, so that may be coming very soon. And I always rank the years I spent with Joe and with Dave Downey among the most enjoyable in my whole time that I've spent modeling. And of course we still have all 3 of the Spitfires, and we may have a 4th within a year or 2. And for all the people that really have enjoyed over the years sharing the Spitfire adventures with us, well, the Spitfire adventure continues. Every time I think one of these adventures is coming to an end, like the A26, then I find out George Waters is closing in on having it finished. And I thought, well, maybe we had 3 Spitfires and that was it, but it looks like there'll be more. Miss Ashley, John Cafaro's got the bottom out there being molded as we speak. And never knew there'd be more than one Ferrari plane, but see, that's how it all evolves, and that's what, I don't know, what makes this very, very special to me is it's the unpredictableness of it all. Very unpredictable. Anyway, back to work. Just thought I'd go over the last few little details of the day, and I really do. This time of year is so pleasant, so nice. Everybody's working on something new. Everybody's got some exciting stories to tell. And it seems like more than ever, Joe Adamusco is psyched up just like he was. And it actually was 10 years ago that we started the Spitfire project. 10 years later, and 6 Spitfires later, we're still dreaming about them. And where that's going in the near future, I wouldn't be surprised if in the next week or so, Joe has the ribs all cut out and I got some pictures on the internet. To me, it's just, I think, one of the prettiest planes of all times. Classic lines. I don't know. It's something I've dreamed about. I love British airplanes. I don't know why. But there may be another one coming. It may be next year's project and we're getting a little head start on it. But that 90 is making a lot of these projects very practical. Anyway, more about that as it unfolds. I hope you enjoy sharing it with us. Now today we got some pictures from Joe Owen, and he's going to be putting a piece in Stunt News, so that's good. And he just wanted to show me some of the little things he's done with it. These are the photos that he sent, the CAD prints from Larry Cunningham. This is something unique now, and I'm looking forward to seeing exactly how he did this. This is with a Tyvek. He made a hinge with Tyvek. Of course, it's a sealed hinge. Now, the only problem with this, that for me it would be, is I like to put the hinges in after the plane is built, and sanding in all these areas for me would be a problem. Anyway, Joe is well on the way to big success here. He's got a Super Tiger 60 that, and I'm reading from his note, was one of John Gunn's, and Big Art had worked on it. Some of the nice CAD work. Now some of these look very interesting. It looks like those are the lucky boxes. And we're going to be making some of these up actually very soon when Rich gets the next work session on a Stuka. He calls this the Ascot Nobler. It's an enlarged to a Super Tiger 60 size Nobler. In a project we've been following along with him for many years. He's kept us in the loop. And Joe, I'm sure, like myself, you always appreciate keeping the memory of George Aldrich alive and the classic Nobler. Something I have to say, it's one of the things I've enjoyed over the years was the Noblers that I've built, that's for sure. Especially the one we made the original Nobler video on. People still benefit from seeing those videos. And the last thing, I see the spar work. He's got the X spar work, and looks like a windy type belt crank. Anyway, Joe, looking forward to your Stunt News article. He also mentioned something that's on my mind too. I have two boys over in the Middle East. One is a B-1 bomber. One flies a B-1 bomber over Afghanistan on a routine basis. The other works as a contractor in Baghdad. And neither is very far from my thoughts. Well, we have an adopted soldier over there for 2 years now. And he's on his third tour of duty, and we just wish that everything would work out as well as possible. They're always on our mind. Anyway, thanks from Joe Owen. And this is something I always... He says he likes the way the stunt news columns I've written. Well, Joe, we appreciate that too. And what I like is just sharing this stuff. Here's a good example. When he had the wing built. I'm just going right off his note. Anyway, Joe, we really appreciate you keeping us in the loop. And again, looking forward to seeing this article in Stunt News. Now it's the time of the year with so many things going on. The first thing we have to do is always our production runs of carbon fiber parts. I'm trying to get this done as soon as possible to free up some time for Rich Giacobone. He'd like to work on his Stuka this afternoon. What it means is I have to get up early in the morning, get my work done, clear the deck for his stuff, and if I have time in between, I'd like to start working on that inner wingtip. Today is just one example, and I wanted to use this for a little example. I have, while I'm working on this production run of carbon fiber gear, if I didn't get up early this morning, now I usually get up maybe an hour, hour and a half sometimes ahead of the time Karen gets up, get down to the shop, get a little work session in. In this case, not working on a model, I'm doing my production work. But what my production work is going to do is free up a big part of the day that's going to allow me to work on Rich Giacobone's plane or work on my own plane or whatever. But had I not done this, then what happens is everything starts to fall behind. And I'm sure everybody has a Christmas tree to put up, and even if you don't have a little business you're running, you wind up with where you want more time to work on your model. And a lot of people, and I've said this so many times that it's even boring by my standards, but I free up these little gaps of time by getting up early, going to bed late. Because basically in the middle of the day, I either have phone calls ringing, somebody like Rich coming over for some help, or Karen wants some, I don't know, you know, put up the tree, put up the lights, or whatever. But boy, the time in the morning, an hour before breakfast, and an hour after Karen goes to bed, those 2 hours are like gold, and it allows me to get work like this done. I mean, if I had to do this part of the job in the middle of the day and then the phone rings or I miss a call or something like that, it's such a good thing. And when I worked at Ford Motor Company, I had to schedule about 150 jobs for each 8-hour shift, and I had to do them on a priority basis. So it gave me a little idea of how to get something busy, something going, and then at the end of the night, whatever free time I had left over was my time. I could sit and read, you know, model airplane book or something. But time management, if you use it well, boy, it's a joy. When you don't have good time management, it seems like you never have enough modeling time. And that's even worse around the holidays. This time of year, everybody's busy. And we have company coming over pretty much every night. So this really allows me to get some modeling done. And boy, wait, these latest gear, we've been really working on getting that mold polished, and these are really coming out really super nice. I just thought I'd mention something else about, while we made this production run, I made a couple of specials similar to the ones we have on a 90 ship. They're wider than normal, a little stiffer. I don't know if you can see the difference in the width. We're able to do that now using the same mold. We've just widened it for this application, but it only adds about 1/8 of an ounce to the weight of the gear, but there's more material in the middle too. So if you have a real heavy duty ship, or one that you think needs a little extra, an extra strong gear, you're going to fly in grass or prop clearance or whatever, that's available now too. But boy, now here's a perfect day. It's not even time to make coffee yet, and we got one part of our day done. And all we have to do is bag these up. And I would say we're going to be ready. I'm going to actually have some time to work on my own plane before Rich gets here. And that's always a free bonus. But that's the problem a lot of people face is they try to just do modeling when it's convenient. Well, sometimes, yeah, that's nice if it's a luxury, but if you really have a plane you want to build and you really want to get it done, sometimes you have to use this technique. And it doesn't mean you always have to use it, but let's say you want to get to a point before the holidays or whatever. I'd like to have a lot more of this plane framed out, and I really do want to help Rich with this Stuka. I'm excited about that. And with Joe Adamusco now, Joe said he's rocking. He's ready to do this 90s Spitfire. It's going to require a new cowling mold, a new canopy mold, gear molds. It's going to be a lot of intense work when we start that project. But what will allow me to have the time is doing these sessions in the beginning and the end of a day. Now that definitely worked out just perfectly. And once Karen leaves for work, I'll be ready to start working on my plane instead of doing production work. Another small item, our spinner mold. I think you can see we've got about 25 of them made up already. There's some even stacked here that we've been able to get these all molded up. Again, by getting all this work done in the morning, I'm going to have some free modeling time later today, and of course have some time to work on Rich's stuff, which really makes my day go a lot easier. Now what I'm going to need to do is cut a little bit of material out of here. Just take these lead outs and carefully bend them inside so I don't have them sticking out while I glue the wingtip on. Then I'm going to have to laminate my 3 blocks together. This is pretty much the way we did the other tip. Get this ready. And I've set a little goal, if I can get this set up in place and get some of it carved out before Rich gets here, that'll be great. If I have to stop in the middle of it, it's easy. I just take the towel outside, get rid of the scraps. But the object of today is we want to get some of the joints made on the Stuka wing. So anything I can do now, this is actually going to be a free bonus for the simple reason that I got such a nice early start today. So here we are, the family isn't even up yet. It's time to plug the coffee maker in. Here's another trick. If you're like me, you're a coffee drinker and you do get up early and you're tired, make the coffee strong. It's so early, the birds aren't even here yet. Anyway, we are really looking forward. I want to get that wingtip on, get as much done as I can before Rich gets here. Now because this wingtip is just going to be about 1/4 of an inch shorter, it's just going to be a little bit different on the block carving. Another thing I wanted to do, I wanted to try to change the opening some. See, I've been using these oversized eyelets. I'm going to try to use a smaller set of eyelets just for, it just looks a little more like aircraft would be instead of a plumbing fixture. That was one of Les's little pet peeves. He never liked the way those eyelets look. So we're going to try to either make some or use some smaller size eyelets when we get to that point. Now if I did happen to have 2 blocks that were different consistency, one's 23, one's 22, that won't really make any difference. But if I had the harder of the 2 blocks, I'd want the harder one on the top. Even though this is just slightly harder, I'll put this one on the top, just so it'll be more or less prone to taking a ding. And then we had to put the spine in the middle, pretty much the same as we did on the other tip. I need to get this all tacked in place. Get this on a perfectly flat surface, get it even, and get it all tacked together. Step 1. Always pay a lot of attention to getting this perfectly flat. Once this is all tacked together, I'll be ready to get a flat surface on it, get some tape on the wing, and get this block in place. And it's this surface that's most critical. I can do this on a belt sander, but I want to get that last nice little flat on there. I got both of these sides dressed off, so it's in essence right now very close to looking like one block. Now I'm trying real carefully not to put a kink in the wires, of course. This is the final little about. I know we've already gotten this close. Now the trick is going to be get the center lines lined up as closely as possible. And that's ready to put on. Now this is the tricky part always, is getting the front to back. I want to leave a little overhang on both sides. The tape kind of just holds it in place because I'm working alone. If I had a helper here, I wouldn't really need the tape. And I want to get the center lines lined up. But I want to also have just enough that I have some material to go through there. I have just enough material here. And this is tricky, getting this right on center is where I want it. And that looks good. We got that right there. I'll put an extra pin just in case. Now to make sure I have just enough material up here to carve to. Now the same way, that's tacked in place. The center lines are both lined up. I want to give myself a little protection on the glass areas here. And actually I'll overlap the tape in the back again because I'd like to leave a little extra here, and I'll true that up with the sanding block. It never hurts to add a little bit, even if you put 2 layers, if you're not sure, put 2 layers of tape here. Because in the final part, once it's, and this part will be hollowed out. We didn't care about lightening up that outer part, and I mean up to a point it's not real important. In fact, I've known people that just leave it solid. But for our purposes, we're going to do that aggregate thing that I talked about on the storyboard. And so this tip we would like to get as light as possible. And that'll be, once it's carved and hollowed, to get that final little joint in there after the lead out adjuster is in. That'll be a critical thing. And keeping this tip light. This tip and everything from the flap hinge line back, we'd like to keep as light as possible. The nose we're not real concerned with. We can always... In other words, when a plane is wrong, if it's nose heavy, it's easy because you put roughly twice as much, I reversed it, twice as much tail weight, twice as much nose weight to rebalance the plane. When it's tail heavy, you need twice as much nose weight to bring the plane into CG. So same thing with the tip. If this tip is a little on the heavy side, you really need, every gram you add out here, you need 2 out on the other tip to bring, you need 2 because you need the tip weight. And you have to balance it out. So I don't know if that makes sense, but in other words, if you had 1 gram less out here, you need 1 gram less out at the other tip to balance it. So the aggregate is that you've made the plane 2 grams lighter. Every gram you can get off here, not sure I'm explaining this in perfect engineering terms, but every time you add a gram here, you need to add a gram on the other tip just to get it in balance. You've added 2 grams to the total weight of the plane. Now the critical thing is that we have the center lines both lined up and that we have just enough material here, and we don't want to, for sure, get too cute up here. We only have, I'm trying to show it, we only have about a 1/64 of an inch extra on both sides. So basically, because of the time window that I have, the goal I've said is I want to rough out some of this. Because the nice thing is I can stop whenever Richard gets here, and if the phone rings, I can do this while I'm on the phone. Biggest single thing to do, even if you think a blade is sharp and it's used. The worst habit I ever had to break was trying to use up and resharpen old blades, and just in the beginning of building a plane or working on a project, just buy one of those packs of 100 blades from Brodax and be done with it. And every step of the way, from this point, carving all these blocks, just be so much easier. Whenever I start carving this, I like to look and make sure I don't have any funny grain in the wood, because I want the knife to follow the grain if possible. And it's just, no matter how you define it, there's just no substitute for just doing ice shavings. I call it ice shavings. Notice that I'm carving the bottom first, just in case I need to build up some rhythm or some vision or something. And because these blocks are so hard to get, especially if I had one really light block, what I'd make is the inboard wingtip. I'd rather have that, and you certainly don't need a light block for the outer tip, that's for sure. So, other than the fact it would be a little easier to carve. But I like to work the shape in. It's pretty much redundant. I guess there's no point going over this over and over again until we get this carved, but just getting the rough shape in here that we're looking for. Bringing it down to where it's about a 64th within the tape before I even hit it with sandpaper. And the more you can, I guess, define it as ice shavings. When I get in and it takes me about 10 minutes to get to where I can do this almost without looking at it, where I can just take ice shavings. I don't take, the blade doesn't catch and take big pieces of wood with it. And then once I get into that, and usually it's about 10 minutes in, I can really go and get some nice shaping done. And at the end, it just requires maybe 1 or 2 swipes of sandpaper and I'm done. And I'm not going to put a whole lot of this on because it's pretty redundant. But when we go to carve that top block, by the way, looks like it's coming in real nice. That big bow that we had, but the longer I can wait, the better. And I've done it, I've on purpose, I've waited so that that block doesn't start out with a curve in it. Well, once I get about halfway through this, I like to take a break, because here's what's going to happen is, the next step on this is to try to, and I've left just a 64th. I think the whole thing has a skin of 64th. I'll have me a nice cup of coffee and then start on the other side of this. I may get this whole thing roughed out before Rich actually gets here. Boy, it's nice to get a good start on a day. I always relate a good start on a day like this, when everything's done, it's like having 2 days for the price of one. It really, it floats my boat. Now that's pretty much roughed out, ready for the trip to the sanding desk, sanding machine. Sanding jet vac. Oh, that's nice. There will be very little left to sand to bring those contours in and bring them right up to the thickness of the tape. And what usually works pretty good is I put a padded part, the other part sits on the padded part of the table. And it's relatively rough. I think this is 80 grit. Just dress it off. I don't want to get anywhere up near the tape with the rough sandpaper until I switch over to like 220 or something like that. But rough paper at this thickness, at this grit, you're still shaping parts. You're still shaping the wood. You're not putting a finish on it. From about 220 down, you're smoothing a finish, and a lot less of it is going into shaping the part. I like to do most of it with my bare hand. It's a thing of beauty. It's a thing of beauty. Well, the shapes, they roughed in real nice. The only thing left is to hit this with some 220. Just put a relatively nice surface on it. And then the next step will be to pull the block off. And that might be all we're going to get done today. Thing with something like this, I don't want to rush it, but I want to just keep the pace going every day, get at least a couple hours of production on it. And boy, it really helps when I can get all the shop work done early in the morning like that. Now before I split the tip, I want to just leave myself enough room. I don't want to get this down real ultra thin right here where the joint is going to be. I'd actually rather have it and back here just a little bit extra. I thought it was going to be a nuisance having that spine in there. It actually didn't turn out to be a problem at all. I did not anticipate it would be that it would not be a problem. So that was kind of a free one. I need to leave a little material up in the front. Need to run a sanding block along the edge of that. We're not going to get to do this right now, but this will be ready once I split it. That's one of the lines that I'm going to have to use. And I need to, pretty much just for my own reference, do the same thing on the tip. Is just give myself maybe 1/4 of an inch. And this is not, doesn't have to be real accurate. We're going to just make, I don't want to have the joint be 1/16 of an inch. I want actually where the joint is to be kind of a little rib. And I think what I'll do is ultimately I'll put a little rib in right at the back here, or somewhere where it's not going to interfere with the lead outs, so that this doesn't get too mushy. And from looking at the way that's going to go together, the next time we get to spend a session, I think we'll be able to finish up that wingtip. We got that one done. It's amazing when it's like instant reward. It's like these kids that play computer games. Instant reward. Okay, so you got the rough sketch out.
Yeah, this is a rough sketch.
Okay, this is 9 1/8, the nose.
9 and...
Did you make it accurate, or did you just do this?
No,
okay.
no, well, it's close to it.
All right, and you got the body, you got the tail in the same position my tail is in.
Right.
Joe Adamusco's cutting ribs already for the 90 Spitfire.
No kidding.
He called me yesterday night. He's cutting ribs already. Rock and roll.
Yeah.
Now your wing is bigger, so the overall fuselage is going to be an inch or so longer. 18 1/2, right. 18 1/2, 9 1/8. And get this up as high as it'll be on the fuselage.
That's why I asked you.
Then it'll balance. Yeah, no, this is the same as mine.
Yeah.
Then it'll balance for sure. And when you got that kink in the wing there, the lead outs will come out at the right spot. All right.
You know.
All right. Cool. All right, you got the wing panels. Let's start thinking around with them. You want the center part and the tip part. We need the 3 patterns for the wing. All right, so take the inner tip off. We want the one for it, because what we want to do, we want to sketch some of these outlines out and write the length of the parts, so we know when he does a sketch. And you need to have an outline of your tail. You got an outline of your tail?
Yes, I do, but I don't have it with me.
No, but when we send this out to get printed. Okay, we got all of the information he's going to need to do that, the lengths and everything. Now we need that drawing that Les did, and start figuring out these dihedral angles.
You want me to put this away?
Yeah, I just need the 2 inner pieces. Okay, now I marked those. Take them apart, you see, so we don't get them reversed. That's the cut side. So now you've got to move the core. You've got to take the angle, take this off of here. We got to make a shim up this exact thickness. This exact thickness to go under the core, and then we can use a sanding block, get an exact dimension on that, and that's how thick you make the shim on the core. Okay. Because both of these have to be 90 degrees. You can't do it all on one side or the other. You got to do both of them to 90. So we'll jack the core up that side and then run a sanding block in there and then do the other side. But we're taking the pink side off. Half inch? Okay, so we'll just get a piece of 1/2 inch wood. So we know this is the dimension we need to go up on this side. This is this side. What I did, I made a balsa shim, that thickness. This side's going to stay on a table, and then we're going to use a 90-degree sanding block, and I got to move it back a little bit because it's going to have an angle in it eventually. You follow?
Yep.
Okay, so that gets us the joint here. Then we reverse everything for the other side, and then we'll have that joint. And you can see how that's taken into account, that angle. Just go slow. You don't have to rush through it. You're only cutting into thin wood and foam. Now, while we have it in this jig, we're going to move the bottom core out and do the other side. We can do both of these while it's in one jig. You got it close already?
Yep. It's there.
Okay. Now, let's move the bottom piece over. And what makes this possible, make sure that you don't get a lot of dust under the block, because that's a 90-degree block that Les made. It's a very accurate block. See what'll happen if you get some of this dust underneath the block will start walking. For this part of it, you gotta keep that table clean. Even clean the block up. Now once you're happy with this, we got this side done. This side has the angle in. What we need to do is just move the core over, take the tape off, move the core over just a little bit. Just enough that you can get this side now the same way. You follow how we're doing? It makes sense, doesn't it?
Yep.
Okay. Everything I say makes sense.
Most of it.
Except the stuff that Karen tells me I don't make sense. Get that angle. You just need it. That's it. Now just put the tape back up there. You really don't even, the tape's just holding it. And then of course we'll have to reverse everything. Reverse the shims and everything for the other side. Yeah, so Joe Adamusco is cutting ribs. Man, he's probably sitting home right now. You know when you're totally retired and you don't have any little silly business or anything to go to? Calling your business silly. You got that right now?
Yep.
You're sure?
Yep.
See, now you start off just taking that high spot off.
Yeah.
When this line is straight, you're still going to have something to do on the bottom. Just keep working it. It just takes a little time. This is exactly how I did the B25, the A26, and all those dihedral joints were real accurate, real good. Just takes a little time. And if you're making a Stuka, it's got to have a bent wing.
Absolutely.
You make a Corsair, it can't have a nobler wing. Got the picture, Chicky?
Absolutely. If you're making a Spitfire, you need...
Yeah, you can't have a nobler wing in a Spitfire.
You need that.
You gotta
wing.
have a Spitfire wing. If it's a Stuka, so all those planes that you made with a straight wing, you ought to just dump them. Give them to Brian. Keep all that dust off the block, because once that dust builds up, then the block starts walking. Takes a little time. And I wouldn't want to use any heavy, any gritty or sandpaper. Otherwise, those joints are going to have to get all filled with epoxy. We want them to be a nice, tight fit. Okay, the way you test to make sure you've got the whole thing done. I want to show Rich how to do this so I don't have to... In other words, you really want to know that you have the whole... See, you got dust up here, too. Take the ink marker and just put little dots along the whole perimeter, and then sand until the dots are gone. Then you know you've got the 90-degree edge all the way up. Yeah, use that pink ink marker. No, you use a color ink marker. Don't use that thing. You gotta go crap all over the sand. That red one is good. That pink one. Just a tiny dot. Just a dot. On the sheeting is where I would put them. Yeah, you got it. And when they're all gone, go right around the whole thing. When they're all gone, you know you've established a 90-degree off the table on both sides. Then when we do the other one, we're going to try to join them together, and if they made up real nice, we're in good shape. Then we of course have to do the same thing. We have to make the jig up for the outer part of the wing. And then the big thing is getting the gear blocks in, those gear ribs or blocks, whatever you want to call them. Okay, now when you sand that, just enough till those little dots go away.
Kiss it.
Just kiss it till the dots go away and you know you got it. Well, you're quite the craftsman, my boy. From the old school. Can you imagine the guys that built the cathedrals in Rome looking at us? Doing it with stone, no tools. Rubbing two stones together.
With bronze chisels.
Bronze chisels, right. No plans, working off it. They didn't even have paper invented then, I don't think.
It looked like
There
it
you
was
go.
there.
Yeah, no, if you
It looked like it was
just go
there.
slow, go slow. This part of it is going to suck up a lot of time. But when you get the joint together, that'll be perfect then. They'll disappear, believe me. What you're doing here, I took a whole day to do with the B25 to get those joints right. And believe me, I was getting frustrated at the end, but when I put them together, the glue joint was like a piece of paper. Nice, there you go.
We're getting there.
Oh, all right. But see how, if you didn't do that, here's what would happen. You'd never know. Look on the bottom.
Yeah.
Your top ones are gone,
Yeah.
but the bottom ones aren't. So what does that tell you? That, you know, we really didn't have the joint as good as we thought we did in the beginning. So I just I can't say it over and over enough. This part of it is going to take time. You can't come over and have a cup of coffee and it's done in 5 minutes. This is just going to, and that's why not many people build these planes that are hard to build. You know, they build the planes that are easy. You build nobler wings. You build things that just snap together. Any plane with dihedral or polyhedral is just going to be a lot of work.
So Musco is cutting ribs.
Adam Musco's cutting ribs. I love it, man. Dave Downey already drew up the Spitfire.
No kidding.
Oh, I got the plan of it. The little plan. You know, not a full size.
For the 90.
For the 90. Okay, now you should have at some point in time no little. Oh yeah, you got it. Okay, good, good. Okay, one down. Vacuum it up, and then we'll reverse it. Put the jig on this one. First panel's done. Nah, no brush. Just use. You can put the brush on the end of the vacuum there if you want. That's the old one. A little epoxy and everything on it. Look at these. Look at how he treats my vacuum cleaner. Treats my vacuum cleaner like it's a Fox 35. Leave this set up like that. There you go. Now we just switch to the other core. Take the shim off. Just go slow. You got the same amount to take off. Now the outer one on the outer panel will be a lot less.
Yeah, because
these are the most severe angles in by the body. These are the ones that you're going to do the most grinding on. The outer ones will have a lot less angle. Okay, that's the last of that joint you got?
Yep.
Get all the dust off now and we'll do a dry fit. I think you could put these on the outside. It isn't going to matter because you're right. Let's see, wait a minute. No, you want to be on the outside of the joint? Make the gear a little bit wider?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so we'll just get 440 bolts. And then we got to start sinking. What we're going to do is we're going to undersize this and take the foam out of here. So this is like a dovetail fit right in there, and then epoxy the whole thing around the perimeter. And this is his gear block. The who'd you get these from? The guy in Cleveland or something?
No, I got it from
Jose got
Jose Modesto.
Okay.
Got it from
okay.
the guy in the Ukraine, but he went through Cosmonato.
Okay.
Because the guy in the Ukraine shipped them to Cosmonato.
They're probably 10 cents in the Ukraine, and by the time you get them, they're $40.
And then Cosmonato shipped them to him. And
What
then
a markup.
to me. Where's the bolts?
No, those are special bolts for belt cranks. Can't you see how I have everything organized? Every
I know
bolt in its place.
Make it this
See,
way?
Well, I would put them on the outside because you're not cutting into the joint then.
But I'm saying, should I do it this way instead of the other way?
What are you talking about?
Instead of this way?
There's no difference. It's a 90-degree bend.
There is a difference. It's just that...
Oh, the axle's back. Doesn't matter. He's got my good stainless steel hardware that Bob Zambelli donated to our course.
The good stuff. It's got to
The
be...
poor company Bob works for probably cost him $100 for that bag of bolts there. All right, bolt that up, and then we'll... I want to see how strong that is when you get that. Put some washers on there, too. Let me get you some washers. Now, you may think all the good comedy stuff is on TV.
Oh, look
if you saw Rich tighten these bolts, this could be on Saturday Night Live.
They're a mile long.
Well, you took my most expensive bolts.
Well, of course. I'm not going to take junk.
Oh, man, he takes stainless, too.
I'm not going to take junk.
Oh, my God. This thing has better bolts than a real plane
Look
has.
at this. Look at how long it is.
Yeah, why don't you take the 2-inch ones? Get some threaded rod. We could put it outside the house.
Start tomorrow.
Oh my God, unbelievable. Now we got to make sure we don't make 2 lefts, 2 rights, 2 1. We got to be very careful because I know with the sense of humor. Oh, jeez. That's at the 40th time that I got to keep the camera rolling. Have you ever worked on airplanes? And believe it, you are a real graduate aircraft mechanic, right?
That's right.
I mean, from that school you went to, you and Gene?
Yeah, me, Gene, and Arnie.
And Arnie went to that school too.
Arnie went to that school too, and he became a bra manufacturer.
Arnie's the only one that got rich too. What does that tell you? Arnie's the only one that's a millionaire. Forget it.
That's right.
I got to admit, it's entertaining watching you tighten bolts.
Well, it's long enough. Look at how long it is. This screw with a lock washer. Now
I'm very impressed.
I'm going to be putting some.
We'll put CA on the whole thing.
Thick
That's
or
right.
thin?
Thin. And I'll trim those bolts off with the cutting wheel.
There we go.
You're worse than my son-in-law. He comes in here with a can of beer and he insists beer doesn't affect how he does things. You should see him trying to start a lawnmower. So impressed. The comedy and routine is over. All right, I'll trim these off and I'll put CA. See, you want to get CA around the plywood too.
Now,
just
do you
so that's
want
a little
to?
stronger.
Well, I could always pull them out.
Yeah, no, we don't need them anymore. You don't need them anymore. Hey, that's nice. They come in and out. See, if you just score that, we need to basically just take the knife up for 1 second. The thickness of this.
Right.
So that part will drop in. And if you take a little extra, it's not going to matter. Foam isn't really doing anything there. The foam is really there just to hold it while you're molding everything else and putting the glass on. And this rib will hold just fine once we get that out. And then we got to make an allowance for this, the gizmo for the gear is. So Rich has the two middle pieces have all the angles in. We're hoping we're going to be able to get the gear parts in the outside, get the bell crank in and join the middle. Maybe by the end of this session, or at worst by the end of the next session, we'll have the whole middle of the wing ready to go. Yeah, you could. That doesn't have to be fancy because the glue isn't doing it. That piece isn't doing anything. It's just going along for the ride. I was afraid I was going to originally make up a little tool to do this with the Dremel tool, but you know what? If you slip,
oh yeah,
man, that's going to chew everything up. This way, if you slip, you're only going to take out the slightest little bit of material. And then we're going to take and drop this piece in, but hand fit it gradually with some rough sandpaper. Just take it down with a block until that piece plugs right in, and then that'll be ready to, well, depending on how long this takes to do the hand fit. But even so, that would be the next session, we'll have the center of the wing joint done. Got to have some kind of unrealistic goal to work toward. You're better off, yeah, you got to cut away for the bolts. And then when you're all done, we'll take some just rough paper and just get that out so we get a nice tight fit. Just get most of it out with the blade for right now. And the last little bit we'll dress off with the sanding block. Don't, yeah, that's nice.
It needs to be.
All right, just pick up the hard spot.
Bit more.
What we don't want to have is that it puckers it out either.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right here.
Okay, do it with the hand block. Don't do it with the, mark where it's got to go. Actually, the truth is, from here back, it doesn't even matter. This part is not you and your cell phone. This is not doing anything. The stress is ending right there.
Hello.
Because we want to get a nice fit in there. And you want to roughen up that epoxy. Don't forget that other side of the skin has a coating of epoxy on it. When we molded these wings, that is right in there, you know what I mean?
Yep.
The idea is to snap it and just take the hard spots off. We want it even, you know, because you're going to use this as a butt joint. You got to have this even.
Right here, got to take some off.
Okay, carefully. Do it by hand. You do it with the belt sand, it's going to be a problem.
No, I took the...
So we got the ridge almost done in there, and that's the next step, to get both of the gear blocks in before we join the middle. All right, you got a nice fit in there. I'm going to mix up some 5-minute epoxy. I'll work on this. You start working on the other one. See, any place, all I'm going to do is just make sure this is flat, because the other part's going to adjust.
Well, there's got to be a little more of this stuff that has to be removed.
All right, well, get it perfect. You know, don't never worry about the foam. The foam's just in your way right now. And I wanted to do these first because these are set at 90 degrees. And when we join the middle, these have to sit parallel. They can't be off.
Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
Nice. Oh, Rich Oliver, eat your heart out, baby. And because of Rich's very accurate workmanship, we're just waiting for the epoxy to kick off. I'm leaving a little bit of a gap here because I don't want to have this sticking out where it interferes with the joint. But I can seat it, and I don't want to put pressure on this where I'm not maintaining the shape. There's plenty of epoxy holding that now. Oh, that's nice. Richard, you are... Herman Goering would be jealous.
Yeah, especially with the way I've been landing.
Man, yeah. With the day these come out, we're gonna blame somebody else. The first day these come out, it's gonna be Jose Modesto's fault. Oh, and that's gonna be... Well, we got it. Richard's still working on the other one. We'll get the other one done. These have to dry then before we do anything. But that may be all we're going to get done today.
Yeah, I think
because
so.
Karen's on her way home already. I think we're better off because of the time limit here. We'll let these dry.
Yep.
Next time we have a session, we'll get the bell crank in, join these two, and then we only got to work on the 2 outer panels. All right.
That's it.
All right, baby. I'd say that was pretty good, yeah.
Yep.
I'll clean up. I got to get the shop cleaned up anyway because we're going to go Christmas shopping tonight for presents. Oh, yeah.
So
It's
we don't need
big
these
Christmas
cars.
night.
These cars we don't need anymore?
Maybe. Well, this morning, after a big cup of coffee and after taking care of all our molding stuff, I want to work on that inboard tip again. Boy, these guys never cease to entertain me. It's unbelievable. Again, I'm looking to make a little bit different setup, similar to this, but with smaller eyelets. Not only smaller, I'm trying to make it look a little more aerodynamic. Les was really on my case about that. He didn't like the look of that lead-out guide, so we're going to see if we can come up with something nicer. Now, the last time we had a session with this, one of the things I was thinking about, because I have a spine in here, I'll have a little bit different choice than just cutting half out of each block. Maybe I can work off the thickness of the spine. That's one choice. I also laid this out, and I'm going to add just a little bit extra material, more than... I'd try to get this down to 1/8. I'm going to leave it at 3/16, because last year we had a problem where I had made it too thin back here, and I constantly was fooling with it, and it just didn't pay. I know I got carried away trying to make it too light. So I'm going to really take my time. Step one is to split this apart and start hollowing it out. No matter what tip, whether you put these on frontwards or backwards, you know, if anybody asks me, the tips just go along for the ride. And that Big Jim Greenaway agrees with that, among other people, that you're not making a lot of lift out here at the tip, but cosmetically it adds a lot to the plane. In fact, it looks like a flight streak. And one choice I have here, and I thought of this, maybe we can make this happen, is leave the top spine in place. And I'm going to try to do that. I'm going to carve around it, of course, but I'm going to leave that top spine in place. But the bottom piece basically can get hollowed in the way we're always used to. But again, I'm going to leave maybe a 1/16 or an 1/8 inch more material than I left in the original Testarossa or in Miss Ashley. Now I remember reading, and I think it's Al Raby, but I'm not sure, as the man who gets the credit. Again, I'm going to leave a little extra here because we're going to put a hinge out here too. That if you were carving a block and you didn't go through in at least 3 places, what it means is the block was too heavy. And probably he's right, but when you get too thin, I've had blocks where I've made them too thin and it was not to my advantage. It was not a good choice. The couple of grams that you save, you wind up in terms of losing time and energy and body work and whatever you use for filler or epoxy light. It just turns into not a good investment. In fact, we're going to leave a little extra material here. And so the first thing I can do, I can mark the other piece and just get my gouge and start scooping some of that out. Now the bottom piece is basically just going to be a clamshell. I'm going to try to, and again, I don't know if, until you actually do this, you really can't tell. This is relatively, I got a knot in the wood or something hard there. Or there's a glob of glue in there. But what happens is, at least to me, is I always want to get this inboard tip ultra light. And of course it's very tempting to go and just overdo it. Like anything in life, if you overdo it, sometime it's it comes and bites you. Anyway, I was just psyched to see that yesterday went so well for Rich. And here's the thing that I see, and maybe I'm the only one that sees it, maybe you see it too. When you get involved in a project, and Rich is involved in his Stuka, this bent wing Stuka, and Joe Adamusco's involved in his now already, we're on the everyday call me basis and email me and everything. You have a passion for this. And you get up in the morning and you just can't wait to get your hands on some balsa wood and some glue. And it seems like when you don't have that passion, and a lot of people don't, you know, let's be honest, they just fly the same plane year after year, and you know, if that suits their emotional needs. But what I would really be, without that passion, without that fire, I would just be lost. And I got to tell you, from talking to Joe, I think this 90 Spitfire project is going to be, if not next year's project, it's going to be in the very near future, and we're gonna do something really cool. And we've already, we've already laid the groundwork. What Joe says, throwing the gauntlet down, because once you say you're going to do it, I motivate myself this way. I wind up making a plan of what I want to do, and then I wind up telling my 8-10 best friends I'm going to do it. Now I can't back out. See, once I tell Joe and Rich and that we're going to do a dihedral Spitfire, well, we're going to push it and just see where it goes. And someday, well, maybe a couple of years down the road, it'll be just one of those planes that you look back, like the B-25. I look back to the day when Joe unrolled the plans and we threw the gauntlet down, and I said, I will build this. And everybody at that field, everybody, if you go back and look at that video, oh, that's too big, oh, it's too much work to do a twin, oh, you'll never get the motors running, da da da. Well, little did I know, we built 3, and there may be another one coming. You never know. I keep thinking about a P-38. But anyway, I know other people that have the fire, and without the fire, I don't know how you can do this. I mean, to get up in the morning, and the biggest decision you'd have to make is what color you're going to paint the leading edge on some plane that's already been built 100 times. I don't know how you can do that. That's really almost difficult for me to envision somebody wanting to do that. But again, that's the beauty of what we do, is you don't have to follow in anybody's footsteps you don't want to. And if you're just in it for the trophies, well, then probably what we're doing isn't going to be the best choice. Then you've got to do that thing of flying old planes over and over again, and I don't know. Wouldn't work for me that much. Anyway, I love the excitement. I love the I love that we can't even see what Rich's wing is going to look like when it's all framed out. Anyway, I'll get the rest of both of these semi-hollowed out before we're ready to do the guide. And then I want to think about how I want to do that guide. This type of stuff goes real quick.
What I like to do is, when I'm hollowing a part like this out, use my hand to feel it. Put the scratches one way. Turn the part, put the scratches the other way. And pretty much constantly check with my hand to see where I'm at. Here, right here's a thick spot. Just get rid of that. Your hand doesn't lie. Okay, we're pretty close now. Now I can put this away. Get out a piece of sandpaper and finalize that. Get rid of the scratches. You pretty much can do the same thing with the rough paper. Do some side to side, put some scratches in it. Go front to back, put some scratches in it. Again, there's a fine line to walk here between how light we can make this part, among others. It's like trying to make a super light tail. You don't want to run the risk that you've gone a little bit too far and it breaks or it bends. But I'd like not to have to run that risk with this part. And I'm going to err on the side of it's a little bit thicker than it has to be. When I carve out both of these parts, and it doesn't take long, the sanding scratches come out and you've got, the idea is to get a nice even thin wall, not have something that looks like, you know, unworkmanlike. Now we've got one, as we have our coffee break, that one is just about where I like it. Hopefully haven't gone too far. Now this one has the spine, and I just want to take into account that the carving will be just a little bit different, although not a whole lot different, but I need to leave a little extra material. I've allowed for that in the red line because I want to put that lead out guide in there. And I need to calculate the angle, and I want to figure out if I can get smaller eyelets or maybe make something special for that. That's what I've been thinking about while I'm having my coffee. Okay, we have the two clamshells done. The next step is I want to lay out exactly where that lead out guide is going to go. And the other part of this, picture what has to happen here, and I'll make a pattern. These lead outs don't come out off a 90 degree, they come off on a very slight angle, but I want to mirror that angle, and the way I'm going to do that is by actually using the lead outs and making a template. Now the next step is to get a new blade and get rid of all this extra material and just leave roughly about a little more than 1/8 of an inch of a lip around there, and we only need that lip as a way of attaching the tip. Now until we get this area, and you can see, well, let's move this off the pad. This is kind of vulnerable now because I could squeeze this. So I have to really be careful when I'm dressing it off and doing any of my little sanding operations. But the next thing will be to pull out, just take the lead outs out of here. And I'm just trying to clean this up. And this is going to be our, I'll get the block sander and sand this flat with that real accurate block that we use. And then this I want to be my surface. I want to have a nice true fit here. And very carefully do that fit. That fit, that's again one of the things on the Testarossa I had a little bit of an issue with. Of course you can always patch it and you can always double silk span it and everything, but I'd really like to get that to be a quality fit right around the outside. So now I'm taking, and this is just going to be a pattern. Piece of 30-second plywood will make a good pattern, because again we need to have this when we go to draw plans up. Now the only purpose this serves is this edge here, and I'll cut this out. This edge here, I need to establish the angle that this is going to go at, because if I have this angle wrong, there's going to be friction at the tubes or some other negative thing happening. Okay, now I got my piece of 30-second plywood. I dressed this edge off. And again, what I'm looking for is the angle. I want to get that up on there if I can. Now, needless to say, I have to follow this angle up into all the spots. And at some point in time I can't go any further forward on the back line because I wind up hitting the gear block. So what I'm going to do is mark that spot so there's no way I can crisscross these and have them hit the gear block. I need to look in there and see where that limitation is. And I thought about this. I thought about leaving just a little angle there. That's why I wanted to make a pattern. All I need to do is have these angles. Whoop. What this is doing, and I'll do the rest of them off camera, I got to establish the angles and then establish how far forward this can go, because in between, this is not going to be one piece, one big slot, because as this goes forward, what's going to wind up happening, these are going to rub on the gear block. I don't want that to happen, so I'll have an adjustment on the back and an adjustment on the front. That's one of the little changes I'm going to make to this wing. Now if you look down in the wing, you can see that the front lead out can only go a certain amount back lead out a certain amount forward. We're limited by that because we have that gear block in there. And we don't want for any reason at all to create a rubbing action on that gear block, what may just bind or in a worst case scenario wear out something, lead out's auto block. So now I know that this is the limit forward and back that I can go. I just need to establish that middle bar and then I can recheck all these angles. Now even the best laid plans of mice and men, sometimes there's a miscalculation. And I just found one, and I know Dave, who will see this video very soon, and Rich Oliver too, will have to make a change that we did not anticipate, and now that I've laid it out in full scale, I see we have a problem. Now what happened on Miss Ashley, we had templates from Les, and we changed them. We moved it around from the original template. We redid it quite a bit. Now, one thing I never took into account, I really did make a problem for myself here, but when I went to lay this out, I realized I have an interference with the landing gear, not with the plywood part, not with the wire, but with the plywood part. Now if I use, let me see if I can do this so I can show this, at least I can show Rich Oliver and Dave what the problem is. The front lead out, we have enough travel, way more than we knew. But when we made those new templates, we moved that piece back for some reason and never took into account this problem. See, now I want to be able to move this lead out up here, but see, it's interfering already. Now I'm going to have to make up a tool, and I'm going to have a cup of coffee and try to figure out how I want to do this. I want to make a tool that I can remove that bar and then reposition it somehow, and I'll have to really give this some thought how I want to do this. This is, but boy, was this a good catch as opposed to building a whole wing. And now and Bob Lampione, I think, is one of the people, I may be wrong, he had braided lead outs, and they were rubbing on the landing gear wire. He never took that into account somehow, don't know how, but it wore the lead out. Now in this case, what I did, I put a wire through there. It doesn't interfere with the wire. The wire is fine. The interference is on the plywood on the back. So I've got to make a tool to get rid of that plywood. It's going to be, I haven't figured out how I want to do this yet, but I've got to get rid of the plywood and then put the lead outs where I want them to be, as far forward and back. And this is a critical thing, and it's my mistake that we never checked this in the course of redoing, and we did redo these templates at the Build-A-thon, and I never took that into account. Shame on me. Now, because I do a lot of prototype stuff, I've gotten used to the idea from time to time you have to invent a tool. So what I did, I took a helicopter tail boom, put sandpaper on one side, and taped on a Zona saw. So in effect, I have a 9-foot long Zona saw. Now the question is, can I get in there? This will be interesting to see if I can or can't without poking my eye out. It's a good thing I caught this. And I'm not sure why that happened. I gotta get a better light in there. Luckily I have this little baby flashlight I can stick in it because I can't see where the blade is cutting as I'm working this. Boy, this turned out to be one good catch. We always used to have a saying, good catch, in a machine shop. Without this long saw, I don't know how you'd get in there. But a lifetime of doing this kind of stuff, we have to invent stuff along the way. And I want to make sure I don't leave any material sticking down because it won't add any strength. No matter how thin I make this, it won't add any strength. Boy, is that hard to get in there too. I don't know what, the thing is binding up on the glue. Seems like in the course of building every plane, when Typhoon, we had that first fuselage go bad from stirring the stick with wood, with a wooden stick stirring EPON. Constantly learning what not to do. There we go. Okay, we're done. Bingo. Now I can get in there with this end and kind of sand it down. And I hope I've saved now. And I'm going to make sure I get these videos out right away. Come on out. Those little pieces. Where the hell did they go? Inside the wing somehow. I got to get them out. But what'll happen is if Rich or Dave already has the wingtip on, they're going to have to take the wingtip off and get in there and do something very similar. So I'll make sure I get these out right away. So these two little pieces of light ply might have caused a real problem. It could be that we've just ducked, not a bullet, but a hand grenade. But these have to come out. And now I have to see if I need to. I'm going to have to kind of squeeze this wing and see if I need to reposition this somehow. Now when I squeeze this, it doesn't seem like, because we still have the arcs, it doesn't seem like we're losing any. Actually, it doesn't seem like we're losing anything. I'm not even going to put another piece in there. I'm just going to take the sander, clean that up so there's no way the lead outs can rub in there when I'm done. Now I can tell you another pitfall that I had thought about in the past is, without that bar in there, I need to make sure that when I put the gear wire down, that let's say the two wires, if you have braided lead outs especially, they haven't both become a problem. In other words, you need to pull tension on. I don't think the solids will walk back that much, maybe they will, but I'll find a way of checking that. But this is something I'm going to have to deal with realistically. In other words, once you take the gear wire out, that wire can fall to either side of the wing, especially if it's in a shop and you've pushed the braided lead outs in and they've fallen kind of just lazily in there. But when that wire goes in, it's a good idea if you can look in and see that you still have one wire on each side of the gear as it was designed. So this is a design change. Believe me, this is a real bullet, and I'm glad we ducked it. This is really not something minor. Now, it's also true of this, and I always have to remember this. And I remember why I bought this little laser flashlight. I bought this little LED flashlight. So when you're putting that wire, changing the landing gear, now once you put it in, if you never take the landing gear out again, you don't have to check anything. But especially braided lead outs, if you were changing them or taking these out at the field and that wire got in front of it, what would happen? It'd be grinding away at the wire. Obviously a bind would occur, your handle setting would change. Too many bad things can happen that way. And the truth is, anytime you have landing gear and lead outs of any kind going through the wing, where that wire goes up into the wing, or if you have real short blocks, you'd really have to be very careful you haven't created an interference fit. And I believe, but again, I don't really know if it was Bob Lampione that had lost one of his planes because that happened. That was really, really a shame. Okay, now with that bar out of the way, that has solved the problem. And now we have basically unlimited choices of where to put the lead outs. Another good thing. But now with that piece out, we also have the potential problem of crisscrossing the lead outs. So anytime we take the back one out or the front one out, we can't, there's going to be nothing to keep them from actually there's nothing to keep them from crisscrossing with that piece in there, because we're still going to have that wire there. So we're just going to have to always pay attention that we haven't done this in taking the lead outs out. We haven't done this, and then done it one extra time. So up is still up, down is still down. It sounds like it's a thing that could never happen, you know, but when you put this many hours into any design, there's bound to be one or two little things have to be corrected, and that certainly was one of them. Now even if you look in there with the wire is almost an interference when the lead out, the back lead out is way forward, front one not an issue at all. So that we can live with. That's certainly in the doable range. But it's the kind of thing I'm really glad I checked, and I'll certainly put out a little note on the computer even today in case either Rich or Dave is in the middle of doing this, just to alert them to that possibility, and then they can look at how I resolved it on a video and see if they have something better. I made a prototype up. I wanted to see how this was going to work. This is rock hard 1/8" balsa. I think they were using this for spars or something on free flights. It's so hard. And what I did, I took this little piece, just wanted to see how this would work, and laid out all the angles on here with a piece of 1/8" tubing in between. So in other words, the way I laid this out is I'd put this piece in, leave the tube in place, get the angle just right, the angle I wanted, and then C8 them both down. So now that gave me this little piece. I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, or if I'm just going to make it over. But those little rock hard uprights, I want to cut this out, and then I have to split it, of course, so I can move the wire in there. Now I want to see, I'm just going to split the whole thing right down the middle on the jigsaw. And then by putting this, well, we know the wire is a 32nd of an inch, so I can put a 32nd of an inch shim in each side, and I should be able to slide the wire in relatively conveniently. Now this is, if you have a wingtip shape that has a straight line, you don't have to go through all this. You can just take a strip and put the holes in it. But when it's a curve, these need to have a fan angle to them. So once this is split now by putting a 32nd shim in both ends, that gives me the exact distance I need for that wire to slide back and forth. Nice easy way to do it. Now it's just a question of figuring out how we want to do the eyelet part of this. And we have literally thousands and thousands and thousands of eyelets. But the one size I wanted, I don't have. Here they are. On the other ships we used bigger eyelets. These were the smaller size that I wanted. And I think they fit in a little bit nicer. They don't have that big giant flange, so we'll see once this is all sanded in how this is going to look. Problem is, once you get up in the front where the curve is, they kind of stick out a little bit, which I think is what Les was complaining about. It didn't look that nice. But in this case, there's limitations on what we can do here. Now they'll look okay. These are a third smaller, so. And I don't want to have any binding. More than anything else, I don't want to have any binding there. Now the next step is to hollow the bottom where the spine is and drop this piece in place. And what I did, I put on an old video just to see when we did this the first time what was different, and we definitely had those ribs, we had them parallel to the wire in the landing gear, so that was the problem. See, that's another good reason to always have stuff on video. It's always documented, so we can see what the engineering problem was. And that's from last year. So now I need to measure and carve a little notch in here. But because I have that spine to work off, I can start by taking out that spine. And when I sand this, I want to leave this hanging out just a 1/64 of an inch so that I can get a little bit of a blend, a little bit of a curve. It doesn't come down in a curve and then drop flat. I can seal that edge on the inside where the spine is. Now the spine is permanently in place. And now I want to get this situated so it's right in the middle. And the only way I'm going to know how to do that, I've got to start doing some test fits until I have that right on center. And just take just enough out that it's right on center. And then take the mirror image of this out of the bottom piece. But the bottom piece is going to be a lot less because I have to account for the thickness of the spine if I want to keep that right on center. Now with that just tacked in there, now I know I have the fit I want. I can just put a permanent glue seam on there. I have just enough sticking out here that I can get that radius that I'm looking for, develop that radius. Now I know this is the amount that has to come out of the bottom, but I want to take just a little ice sliver at a time out because I want a tight fit. I don't want to have a fit that I have to fill with glue. Now, and then I'll get the sanding block out and get the last little bit of this fit so that part just drops right in there. I can look each time I work this, I can look for the hard spots, and I still need to go, and especially in that corner, just a little bit more, because if I don't get this fit nice, it's not only that, it's going to distort the tip. And I should have the same amount of the guide showing on both sides when I'm done. Yeah, that's pretty good. And once I get this really close, and I mean I really want to get this to be a nice fit, if for no other reason than just to impress Les, who used to harass me about this lead-out guide all the time. Oh, your eyelets are too big. Okay, now we got the fit, but I need to work off a flat glass table, something flat. And before I do anything, I'll tack it. Make sure I'm not putting a distortion into this, because what I need to do then is go up to the wingtip and make sure I haven't taken this part and puffed it up or shrunk it down. And once I know I have that shape and I'm happy with it, and I don't know of a lighter way to make this. This is, in many times I've tested to see which is the lightest way. This way always seems to be the winner, but maybe someday we'll come up with something better. In the meantime, we just got to fight it out. Okay, so now I want to go to that part and check the fit. If the fit is okay, run the whole glue seam, inside and out. Okay, so we have maintained the shape, and now to get a good bead on the inside, let it roll down, and now we're kind of just let that roll down into the corners. This outside is done, and now I can do a little sanding before I put this in place, because once I put it in place, the lead outs are in the way. So I want to get this trued up, get this whole edge trued up while I have it that it's convenient and I don't have the lead outs to deal with. Now it's always difficult in the beginning because I want to blend a hard surface into a soft surface. But once I get the shape, then what I'll do is put thick CA along the whole edge so I'm going hard to hard. But I just need to get the general shape first, and that goes pretty quick. And we'll see if Les is impressed when he gets back from Texas. He's in Texas right now, of all places. Oh, I just want to get that aggregate weight. We always hope we can keep it under a ½ ounce. ½ ounce, of course, is well, this is 12. Okay, so what we always have to take into account now is the ½ ounce variance between the outer tip, 12, and we're just going to round it off to a ½ ounce. And I'm sure I could have gotten it down to 12, but then I run that risk that I'm going to lose some of these. These are going to get, these I know are going to be the right thickness. In fact, they're even a little extra thick. Probably I should have gotten in there and gotten some more out, but you know, I'm not going to take a chance on having to go through all that body work again, trying to even that seam out. Again, this is still a hard and a soft surface. And the way to just make that easier to do is just get a couple of coats of thick CA. That'll just allow me to get this blended in now. I'm probably not going to get this installed around the lead outs. I thought if everything went perfectly today, I would get to that point, but I'm not. But not to worry. Next time we get to work on this, the next step is going to be to install it, wrap the lead outs. Yeah, that worked out pretty well. I give this a couple more, actually, while we're... Once you're starting to sand hard to hard, wow, everything just blends right in. It's where it ends and becomes balsa wood that you always have either the line or the gap or something that's the problem. And this, when this is all blended in, to me it's a thing of beauty. Now I was just thinking, with all this stuff with the lead outs, maybe it'd be a good thing to just see if I haven't built myself a little monster in here that I don't know about. And it's really difficult to, no, not impossible. Yeah, this one had, and I just really wanted to check it. This one has totally, we moved that piece of wood on the template. And I never took into account the lead outs were going to rub on it. So shame on me. This one's okay, but it never hurts to double check it. I'll sleep better tonight knowing that. Take a little look in there and make sure. And it never hurts to do that. And again, twice as bad if you have braided lead outs. Now in today's mail from Bob Morse. Wow, I'm checking out the car more than the plane. Both nice, of course. The old Genesis model. Now just as something to look at, look how big the tail is. Look at the span on the tail. Looks like it's more than half of the wingspan. It's an old design from the 70s. Very popular, very an excellent design, of course. And here you have, I'm not sure what motor's in there, probably, I'm just going to guess a 700 horsepower motor or something. And John Pothier needs a motor for his vet. Maybe we could take the one out of that car when he's flying his Genesis. Bob, thanks a lot. And by the way, Bob, I'm sending you out a couple extra DVDs that really, I think you'll really enjoy. Enjoy them, please. And thanks for sending us. I'll put this up on my wall of honor here with my Ferrari stuff.
Now this morning when I went to fit this up, I realized I could put a couple more coats of thick CA on here, a couple more sand outs. And because it's Christmas, we're basically getting a phone call a minute here. Let me get the phone. Now there's another reason I wanted to get even more of a hard edge on here before I joined this, because once I get the lead outs in here, then I can only get up to the lead out. So I wanted to at least get this area here as well. Let me get another paper towel. That's another trick. Don't use the same paper towel over and over again. The stuff that's on the towel gets hard and you put gouges in the wood. But anyway, if I can get this on today, the schedule is, and I'm never sure what my schedule is here, but I got a call from my children, my lovely children, and they are needing me in my van for today to move some furniture, so we're going to try to do that. And tomorrow morning, then that'll mean it'll free up some time for Rich, and we'll get that Stuka joined up into one piece. I'm looking forward to that. Looking forward to it a lot, in fact. Anyway, each time I do this, it's really just this area that I need to be fussy with. And then I want to get this on to make the joint. Oh, and that CA goes off. And I, on purpose, this tip is a ½ ounce. I think the other one was 10 grams. But the good news is this is even stiffer. This is stiffer. Normally I would put a rib in here, like a little cross piece. Don't even need it with the rib, with the tip this thick. So this should give me a nicer, even though I've paid a little bit of weight on this, this should be an upgrade. Well, we're going to find out anyway. Anyway, that's a nice, I think I got that, and this is ready to put on, ready to join onto the end of the wing. Once I'll get this surface flat, the other surface flat, this will be ready to go. And this is really the last time I get with the accurate 90-degree block to get this edge trued up. Now another trick is don't blow the dust off. When you're going to do this kind of a joint, leave the dust in place. Nice little trick. Because we're going to first off, once this is in place, and I'll do the same thing to the wing, I'll put the lead outs back in, true it up. I'll get just tack it in place. Once I'm real happy with it, then I can run that seam. I carefully make sure that the block is up above the panel or equal to it. Just tack it first. And once I'm satisfied that that joint is good, because again, the tip block should be just a little bit above the core. I'm trying not to sand any of the fiberglass away, or if I have to, just a minimum amount. As soon as we get this joint finalized, now I'll do the other side. Yeah, that's good. Now we know we've got it true on both sides. We know we've got a nice tight fit. So now I could just run that whole seam. And now the next step is to true up the trailing edge, and then we'll start to work this seam in. Okay, now the hard part, I was very, very careful to get that center line right on the middle. And this will be one of those parts where I want to maintain that center line so I can get that outer hinge pocket. Once I get it close, I flip the bar over to the smooth side. Again, Dave was going to change in the mold the trailing edge. At some future time that may change, so for right now I can take a smaller block and just get this edge. Because we want to keep that unique Miss Ashley. The Miss Ashley wingtips that I liked really came to a point. They didn't have any radius at the back. They just
And of course, Miss Ashley used a Learjet wing, so they are the tips off a Learjet. But I thought that always was one of the nicer features. Okay, so that's clean. Now I need to pretty much repeat the same thing up on the front here. And then work the seam. I don't need the big bar for this. But the idea is to get a really nice, at some point in time, get a really nice flow to where this curve, and the air of course is just flowing around this. But now I got these lead outs in my way. That's annoying. So I'm glad I got most of this shaping done anyway. Now I paid really strict attention, really got this center line right on the money of the spine. But I've had to sand through now. And now I'm into the same old thing where we go hard to soft, hard to soft. Before I do this joint, I want to get this radius. And the way to do it is, and especially if you go through the glass at any point, you can make that joint invisible, and you can make the joint where the glass ends invisible. Just a couple coats of thick CA. Once that kicks, and of course the final test is, does it feel nice? With the air flowing around there, how would that feel? That's good. Now the last thing is going to be this seam. And I'm just going to put a new piece of sandpaper on a block, and very carefully, I know that I'm higher on the tip than the core, so I'll really be careful about this. I don't want to start on here because I'm going to chunk off pieces of that. And every time I feel that, I'll know if I'm coming right into that where it's going to be smooth. When it's done, one thick coat of CA wiped off will be perfect on that. All right, we've got the last of the hinge pockets in. I wanted to have a fit, but I didn't want it to fit where when I push it in, it swells the wood. I want to have a relatively loose fit, in fact, because you know some dope is going to get in there and whatever. And when the final fit will, of course, that'll be done with epoxy. And when we turn these hinges into washboards, they get a little bit thicker. But we don't want, we're going to try like heck not to have that pucker up in the final part. Now, the last thing, and I may be able to get this done today, is the lead outs. Because we want to work on that Stuka tomorrow. And the first thing I want to be sure is that I still have a good fit on these. And you know, I've already wrapped the lead outs. I don't remember which ship, but I have wrapped the lead outs and forgot to put these little guys on. So I want to make sure I have clearance. Make sure it's a relatively tight fit. And we just wound up using the next size smaller eyelet. Miss Ashley has those big eyelets. This will have smaller eyelets. Les will be happy. Another thing before I even go any further, I want to double up some 320 paper. I'm going to make sure I don't have any little globs of CA in the little notches. And if these don't go, I want to be able to slide this, but not have it slide automatically. And I'd like to fit it in all of the little pieces. Make sure the wires slide. I can get them all the way up to begin with. Because once we put some dope in there, the dope is going to kind of fill that. I'm going to have to get back in here each time and get that slot cleaned out to keep a nice, neat, workman-like look on it. Anyway, we got a call from Arnie Haber. Our big train show is in town. We videotaped it many times, but he wants to come over with some trains tonight. And I feel like we've reached another watershed with this project. And it's good to get away, well, you know, not be doing this every night of the week anyway. I like to have a little diversity. This seam worked out just about as nice as I possibly could have ever expected. Well, you can hardly feel that, in fact. Once you get a couple of coats of dope on there and block sand that out, this is one of the things that I think is a big upgrade over the Testarossa, getting these seams a lot nicer. That's real nice. Now, the next thing is I'm going to wrap the lead outs. I bought all these pliers at Costco. I bought this set of like 200 sets of pliers.
And I also have a big box over there that just came in from Warren Walker that's got, I know what's in it, there's magnets in it. We're doing our tool organization. See, here's one that needs, that's okay. But if you find one that's a little tight or a little loose, I want to be able to just move these. And every time we put dope and tissue and silk span, be able to go back. Now the first thing is to clean all this, if they're solid wires, clean off all the, there's always a coating of some kind of oil or grease or something before we go any further and do the lead-out wrap. And you can see all the stuff that usually comes off of there. Getting the wire clean, stay bright solder, get the defluxing agent out. We'll see if these little pliers are going to work as well as I hope they will. That was kind of a cool thing. I looked at in Sears Roebuck, one pair of pliers. It was, I don't know, like $12 or something. And for 16, you got 20 sets of pliers in Costco. So we now have a plier for everything in the world. And pretty soon I'll have a magnet that'll organize it. Maybe over the weekend we'll get to organizing that part of the shop. And you can see all the stuff that comes off. You can't really solder until a wire is nice and clean. And the next thing are these little crimps. These are special crimps that we use on making up our bell cranks. But the other trick before you do anything is to get the crimps on. Because I've done that too, is I've wrapped the wire, got ready for the eyelet or whatever, and the crimp wasn't in place. And then you got to cut it. Now I always like to cut these long enough that if I'm not happy with the wrap, see if I cut them to where the minimum would be right there, well that's cute. It's cute that way, but I want to have a little bit of extra material in case I'm not happy with the wrap, that I don't run out of wire and the thing is buttoned up on the wingtip. And the first step for me is on little pieces of tape, because I'd like to get these somewhat in the middle. Again, with a 4-inch bell crank, you have a lot of travel, a lot of leverage. So I know right there is the minimum, and I'd like to have a little extra, so I'm leaving that. There's my minimum. I'd like to have a little extra, and I'd like to mark where I want the minimum to be. Now this is not ultra critical, because of course you're gonna at some point in time adjust the handle, but I'd like to be about at mid throw. And I can see this one can go further up. I can slide these until I know this could actually go up even a little bit more. So now, I know I want that clearance, I know that'll be in neutral. Now, I haven't used these yet, but hopefully they're going to work the way I want. They're round nose pliers. These came from that Costco collection. And what I'm going to try to do here is, I'll do it right down at the bottom. You can see the shape, they're totally round. Now it looks like, and again now I can take this piece off, it looks like these are going to work pretty good. In the past I've had to use other things that are really not as good as I'd like. Got a little piece of tape off. Now even using the round nose, I don't know what we'll call these pliers. The idea with wire is to bend it once and not have to bend it 2 or 3 times, if at all possible. Now we can take the little pliers that have a pointy end, put a little 90-degree bend on these. So let's see what that looks like. That's what that piece of wire looks like now. And getting nice lead out ends is, I guess, one of the things I'd like. I've left myself enough that I'm not going to have to be in trouble here. It's that wire, and these are all 032 wire. I get these from Johnny Duncan at 48 inches long. John Duncan is the supplier.
Now I can trim this with the pliers, slip it into the eyelet, and I'll have one side done. I'll be ready to solder. Another thing too, once these are wrapped, I can hang the wing up. I like to hang it up by the lead outs. I don't like laying it on a floor, on a bench, or somewhere where it can get in some way damaged. So now I can get the little cutters. I can leave this a little oversized too. I may need the heavier duty cutters. These are really, they're okay. Like I said, they're perfect. Put the eyelet back in. I need to kind of fold this back. Trying not to use my fingertips. I always wind up getting one of these under the fingernail. Now after I get this whole thing done, you'll see what happens is I'll find a special pair of pliers that has little grooves for doing this. See, these don't have, problem with these, the grooves aren't big enough. We really should take a pair of pliers and put grooves in the tip. We'll just make this a little bit easier. Okay. So, I see how that's slipping, that's a problem. Hard to believe, huh? But that's it, baby. There we go. You think I edit this stuff out? You're crazy. Okay, that fits. Now we just got to have the eyelet in there when we do it. One of our lovely little jobs. Amazing how many little things there are in the course of building a plane that can be frustrating. I can see what would be a good idea here would be to have a pair of pliers with little grooves in them, just to make that easier. But now that I've got that part done, these pliers might not even be big enough. There we go. Bingo. And that's ready for solder. And all we got to do is the other one, get the solder out, and we'll be to another milestone in the building of this wing. I always like to have these nice and neat. I don't know why, just wrapping them with wire and making a big ball out here. I never really was happy with that. Stay Bright silver solder, the only solder to use for this kind of a thing. Of course, it melts at a low temperature, but absolutely deflux it when you're done. In fact, I can see this is and when I'm done with these, and I'll let them cool normally, of course. Don't douse them in water, let them cool normally. And then what'll happen is I get out my baking soda and water. This is ordinary baking soda and water, and I have it. Just let this cool, clean it up with some steel wool. And the last little thing I like to do is just polish the ends off, just for my own personal satisfaction. One of the little details I enjoy. I enjoy having a plane nicely detailed, even in areas that other people don't find important, and of course it's all in the eye of the beholder anyway. All in the eye of the Concourse Award. There we go. Anyway, it's been a good day. Again, one of the best days. And it's always such a nice relief to have something that you enjoy beside model planes to do at the end of a day. Good to have friends that are interested in multiple things. Oh yeah, that's going to be fun. And we hope we'll see you on the next tape. Now, look, really, actually, it's funny, but I'm almost looking forward to working on Richard's Stuka, unless it's supposed to be here tomorrow. Almost looking forward to that as much as to seeing how this is going to shape up and how we're going to get those scoops finalized. We've got more pictures coming from several people. Got a lot of projects going on. It's a great holiday season. Hope you're enjoying it as much as we are. And again, happy holidays from Karen and I. Hope you're having just as much fun, good health, good cheer, and a great Christmas.